Welcome to the Dead Pixel Society podcast, the photo imaging industry's leading news source. Here's your host, Gary Pageau. The Dead Pixel Society podcast is brought to you by Media Clip, Advertech Printing, and IP Labs.
Hello again, and welcome to the Dead Pixel Society podcast. I'm your host, Gary Pageau, and today we're joined by Dave Herring, who is a photographer, an editor, an author, and creative director from San Jose, California. Hi, Dave. How are you today?
Hey, Gary. Thanks for having me.
Now, as most listeners of this podcast know, we don't really talk to a great many photographers here, but when we do talk to a photographer, they're a great one. How about that, Dave? No high expectations there, right? So, Dave, tell us a little bit about your career, how you got into business before we get into the main topic of the things we're going to talk about.
Sure. Yeah, I've basically had a whole career in the creative world, kind of dabbled in a lot of different things. Today it's photography, and it has been for the last many years. But prior to that, I was kind of in the music side of things. I've been in the design side of things, audio engineering, editing. So I've played kind of two parts, part is like vision related, coming up with ideas and pitching. And the other part is like the technical side, and executing, whether it's designs or any type of like engineering that goes on the creative end. So I've kind of had a wide spectrum. Most of it was in the nonprofit world prior to becoming freelance. And today I still do a lot of consulting in the nonprofit world, but today it's mostly freelance and mostly photography.
Okay. So, and I'm sure there's some video in there too, right? Because it's sort of becomes synonymous.
I definitely do video as well, but my like passion is more in the photography side. The video side is fun, but it's not like what I get out of bed for in the morning.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's funny because when I talk to photographers who have kind of done that, it's sort of like almost a necessary evil to their career, in the sense that, you know, clients want it, you got to have the skills. Yep. Sometimes even the equipment is the same, right? The same camera you're using for the stills can also be used for some of the video.
Yeah, definitely.
Which was not always the case.
No, it does make it really convenient today.
Less gear to schlep. And you're also a travel photographer. Yeah. Where are some of the places you've been to, and how does someone make a living being a travel photographer these days when it doesn't seem like there's a big magazine market for travel photos anymore?
No, there's not. And I basically have shot like kind of all over the US for different tourism boards, or, you know, various different things in that world. I shoot for the National Park Trust in the past as well. So like I've been able to, you know, shoot a lot in the national parks. I've done some international things. How you make a living at it is you diversify your income.
Which is one of the things I do want to talk to you about, but I was down to curious.
I mean, ultimately that's the secret sauce to making it as a creative is income diversity. And so, the travel side has its ebbs and flow. I mean, like there are seasons where it's really strong. I'm getting booked a lot, or a lot of requests for that. And then there's other seasons where, you know, it's kind of dried up. And if you're dependent upon that, then, you know, you're going to get yourself in a mess.
Yeah. Because it seemed to me like that was sort of like not really a fallback, but back in the days of stock photography, when stock photography paid something and there were slides and things like that, you know, a photographer could bank up a lot of travel pictures,
right?
And kind of have that recurring income coming in from that great shot of the Tetons or something that they did.
Right.
And that's gone these days.
What it really comes down to today is more about tourism boards. It's like you mentioned the Tetons, right? So there's Visit Jackson Hole, Wyoming. That's a tourism board, and you know, they have an annual budget to bulk up their creative media so that they may attract people to come to their region and spend money in the hotels and the restaurants and the businesses there. And tourism boards exist in the smallest towns in the US and the biggest towns in the US. And so when you really think about it like that, like I'm in the Bay Area, but there are like 60 little, like the Bay Area is like 60 communities. It's not just like, you know, San Francisco and San Jose. I know you've got Cupertino and Sunnyvale and Fremont and Milpitas. I mean, it just goes on and on and on in like a 2-hour radius of the Bay Area. Well, every one of those little towns has a tourism board. So, and every one of those little tourism boards, they have a budget in which they are going to spend this year on creative media, whether it's video, whether it's photos. And so I have been able to have a bit of a career in that I've been able to connect by going and meeting these tourism boards or meeting people, making relationships, and then being able to have them bring me in to shoot for their location.
So talk a little bit about that, because I've had photographers on the past where they talk about the necessity of being able to network, right? That the business isn't really behind the camera. It's at a cocktail party or a networking function. I mean, when you
Absolutely.
got into the business, did you know that?
For me, I've always been really relational. I'm a very relational person in general. And
Mhm.
like, I mean, when you think about photography, it is a creative thing, but it's also a systematic business. Like
Right.
you have to execute systems, and you also like in any industry, a lot of people have these mindsets that like certain industries are a good old boy, industry. Like you have to
Right.
just, you gotta know the right people to get, well, that honestly is true of every industry,
Right.
including especially true in photography. So for me, I would say 9 out of 10 of my clients are either people I have met at networking events, or people I have met specifically because I have sought out places to go meet these people. So for instance, in 2022, I went to a travel bloggers conference. I do not blog. Okay. I'm not a travel blogger, but there's a travel bloggers conference. It was up in Washington State, and they had about 40 tourism boards from around Washington, Montana, and Idaho and Oregon, up in that region. About 40 tourism boards were there in the vendor booth, so bloggers could meet these tourism boards. Well, I went there not as a blogger, but I still went to the conference, met a bunch of people, and I got booked for several shoots from that just by going around, being friendly at the table, handing my business card, at the mixers, making sure to stand by people and like not talk about photography, just talk about life. I'm a husband. I've got kids. Like I have a lot of things I can talk about. And so
Right.
you make these connections, and then when it's time to show your services and what you do, you have a relationship there already established. It's not transactional. It's not like,
Right.
hey, I want something from you, so let me tell you how cool I am and how great I am. No, it's like, let me get to know you. And if you like what you get to know of me, and when it comes time for you to, meet your budget on creative assets, here's my card.
Yeah.
And that typically, and honestly, like that works. That works.
Well, it's funny you said, because in the past we've had the CEO of Dale Carnegie, that is literally Dale Carnegie 101.
Mm,
Showing interest in the other person is how people get
yeah.
interested in you. And sadly, I've been in a lot of situations where I see creatives pitching, right? And it's
Right.
literally, let me get on my iPad and show you my portfolio. And that
Mm.
is not a way to win a friend and
No,
influence.
not at all. Because that feels really transactional. It feels like, okay, does this person really care about me, or they want to use me to get what they want? And like,
Right, right, right.
nobody wants to be used, and not everybody I have met has always booked me,
Mhm.
but you know what? I still like follow them on social media and connect with them, and
Mhm.
like, because again, if you go into every opportunity transactional with people, then you're gonna fail. Like there's just no way that's sustainable, because you couldn't sustain that towards you, therefore you can't sustain it from you either.
Right. So, so when we're talking about the business side of, this sort of thing, we were kind of chatting before this started about, there's so many people who are creative, and they have a creative bone in their body that needs to be exercised, right? And sadly, so much of the business now is everything you're talking about, like pounding the streets. It used to be making phone calls. Now it's doing other things, social and networking and all this other stuff. Um, and it's a balance, because it's taking you away from doing the thing that got you into the business to begin with.
Right.
Do you have an idea of how much time you spend on getting creative work as opposed to being creative?
I think that there's been seasons where, like, yeah, like I would say 90% of my time is trying to land the job. And then there's other seasons, like, and I'm thankful I'm in this kind of season now where I get to kind of pick and choose what projects I'm taking on and
Right.
which projects I'm passing on to other, as referrals. Like the creative world feels very glamorous to people that aren't in it, because it feels like,
Right.
oh, wow,
Exactly.
like, wow, you get to
Exactly.
do this for a living. Wow. Oh, that's so cool. Oh, you get to travel. It's like, well, yeah, I do get to travel. I do get to fly into places and spend the night in a room that's not mine, in a bed that's not mine, and then get up at sunrise to go shoot and do that until sunset, then go home, and like those are fun things, I guess, to some degree. And
Mhm.
sometimes they are fun, but other times, like, man, I'm homesick and I want to be with my kids and
Mhm.
my family. it just, it's not all that glamorous. So
And you got,
say,
Pelican cases to schlep around.
oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah.
Gear,
I mean, they're not seeing that piece of it.
and they're not seeing the insurance bill, the insurance on my gear. Too. But I guess where I was going with all that though, is that at the end of the day, like the creative side is fun. Especially when you're doing the things that you love to do. Mm-hmm. But the business side is a systematic process, so that every day that you get up, you're not waiting for inspiration to hit so you can go monetize inspiration. Stephen King, I think, is the author of this quote. I could be wrong, but he's I think it's the Stephen King quote that says that I write when I'm inspired to write. And thankfully, I'm inspired every day at 9 a.m.
Right.
Yeah. Like if I don't have anything I'm actively giving my time on, like right now, I kind of have my checklist of creative tasks I need to do today. And I call them creative tasks because they are part of my business, but I've got to edit a video for a vet. That doesn't get me out of bed in the morning, but that's like, I have a systematic way in which I'm going to do that today and get this job complete and send it for a review. And that's just part of like those daily checklists. There's emails, there's admin. It's all systems at the end of the day. Just like McDonald's is running systems, I'm running systems as well.
Now, is that something you've always been geared towards, that sort of process, like a systematic approach, or is that something you just learned that you had to do to be successful? Because I certainly could see where on the creative side, you have people who are like, I just want to, wait for the muse to strike.
Right. I think there's a difference between being an artist and then being an entrepreneur. Some really like good artists have entrepreneurs on their behalf, that do this stuff for them. I don't think that's always practical in today's economy. You kind of have to wear a lot of hats whenever you are, an artist. If you want to, and not everyone needs to monetize their art either. Like just because somebody is good at something doesn't mean they need to make it their career. But your original question about, have I always been wired that way? I think to some degree, I'm pretty balanced left and right brain. I've got a very like systematic and logistical, like strategic side of me. And then I also have like the creative side of me. I have worked hard to find balance and unison between those two competing, because they really are competing like ways of life. And there's a great book called The E-Myth Revisited. It's a book about like, the need for systems, but I'll even like give you this example. If I can deliver a really quality shoot for one client, I ran systems and without even realizing it, I ran systems to deliver that shoot. Let's say I got booked to go shoot for Yosemite National Park. I shoot there often, but not for the park, just for me. But let's say they booked me, and so now I'm like figuring out what the best time and spots are. Well, that's a system. I'm executing to go figure out where I should shoot and what time I should shoot, and then I have to, make my plans to go there. Am I staying overnight? Am I driving in the middle of the night to get there? So there's a system. I get the shoot, and there's a technical system I'm executing from internal knowledge of how to work my camera and work my creativity. So there's systems in that. Then I come home and I'm going to have a system on how I get that file into my computer, edit that. And then I have a system of delivery as well. And now they've got their shoot that they booked me for, and it checks all the boxes they requested. So now I ran all these systems, whether I realized it or not. Now another, let's say Kings Canyon National Park is like, man, we love the work you did for Yosemite. Come do that for us. Well, the best way I can ensure that I will provide that same level of quality is to run the same systems.
Right.
That's why you can go to 500 Starbucks around America and get the same cup of coffee,
right.
And that's all system by 500 different, people working at Starbucks. Right. And that world of systems, it actually ensures you're an artist. You know what I mean? It actually helps you deliver what you say you're going to deliver consistently every single time. It's all comes down to, so I have found that the systems that I have built for my business they actually enable me to be a creative full time.
It's interesting because I can hear some folks I know on the more creative world, right? But doesn't that inhibit your creativity? But actually guardrails can enhance creativity.
100%, because now I don't need to figure out how I'm going to edit these photos when I go. Like I'm shooting with my edit already in my brain and my process. Honestly, I find freedom to create knowing that the systems have already been thought through. I don't have to figure out this stuff. I work. It's a difference between working on something and working in something. You know, like we're constantly reactive as humans. We love to react to things like, oh, this needs to get done, so I need to do it.
Right.
But then like I have 20 hours a week where I can work on things like, and then by working on it, I don't have to react to it. And there's a lot of freedom in that as a creative. That gives me space to be creative.
So was there a seminar or a workshop or anything you attended that kind of taught you this? Or I'm saying this is sort of a not an unnatural thing, but certainly where did you get your inspiration from, I guess, other than Stephen King quotes?
Just about the systems, So for that, honestly, it came out of being burned out. Like I found myself going through very fun seasons and then completely burned out. And when a creative burns out, we kind of lose the drive to get stuff done. Like what was fun now feels like work, and work is not fun. And so then you shut down, and like, there's so many people that start photography businesses that never either A, take it serious enough to get to a point where they are full-time, or B, do it for a season and then just get super burned out. I mean, that's one of the reasons I coach like in the photography world now, because I'm trying to help these entrepreneurs like, find a sustainable way to do it. But like, if you are not doing this, you burn out. So for me, I burned out. And when I burned out, I was like looking for how to prevent burnout. And so honestly, there were like, 2 or 3 authors that I read a lot of their books. One of them, Patrick Lencioni, has a lot of books about just like good, like just business and leadership practices. Like, and Henry Cloud is another one. Oh yeah, there you go. You got it. Yeah.
Overcoming Henry the Cloud. 5 discount. Yep. Everyone's got that.
Dr. Henry Cloud, he has a book called Necessary Endings, which was revolutionary for me. Because it taught me that it was okay to say no to some things, or let some things die and end that need to die. And then you go through the grief and the loss, whatever needs to be let go of. But like, so I don't know, like, I don't want to say like, oh, go read a bunch of self-help books, but I think learning good leadership and business practices, those aren't natural. Like much smarter people have figured things out that I'm not going to figure out on my own. And so why not invest a little bit of time into learning from them?
Now, you're in an area that's sort of a creative hub. There's a lot of creatives there.
Yeah.
Were there any local groups you interacted with or encountered that were helpful in this process?
Yeah, I think like here in the Bay Area, it is a very creative area. I mean, we're in Silicon Valley. We have all of tech, all the innovations, everything that we use every day kind of comes out of this area. And so you do have a lot of innovative thinking. And you also have a lot of like artists in the area. I would say there's more artists, not so much. The San Jose area is not really known for its art scene. Once you get more up towards like Oakland and Berkeley, and you get more of that. But here I'm part of a kind of like a creator network.
Sure.
And it's across many disciplines. It's like if I just hang out with photographers, then I'm going to think like a photographer. I'm going to learn like a photographer. But like, what if I hung out with a painter? What if that painter gave me a new perspective? So we have this creator network here in San Jose. We get together once a quarter on this thing called Creator Night, and 100 artists from different genres and different disciplines come together to share with each other, share resources, share knowledge, network, and all those things. And so that's a very life-giving community here in the Bay that I'm part of.
And is that a a nonprofit or a casual group? Or
it's a nonprofit. Yeah.
Okay. That's very cool. So how often do you meet? How many people are involved typically? Is it mostly in person or is it online? I'm just very curious because I think this is sort of a thing where people could, like you said, kind of escape burnout through this sort of connection.
Yeah. So here in the Bay Area, our Creator Night is quarterly. So we do it, every 3 months. Which doesn't feel like a lot, but really like when you look at the space between them, it feels pretty fast. So they're hosted at a creative space here in San Jose in a warehouse. And the warehouse seats anywhere between 100 and 120 people, and it's typically pretty packed out. It's about a 3-hour event. It has like food truck, networking, performances from different artists featured, and it's kind of like a live podcast in the room. There's no recording, but like
very cool.
panel of artists will be interviewed and share, and they're all local and they're all sharing, different topics. Like the one we just had one this past weekend for the winter 2023 winter one, and it was about like the character of an artist. So like apart from your talent, like what gets you booked is your character. It's
right.
Talent only gets you so far. If you're not a reasonable and fun person to be around, then you're never going to get any gigs. So
or just being dependable. Right. I mean, just doing the job when you're asked to do it. I mean, there's such a hubbub right now in the wedding and portrait segment. I know you don't do a lot of those, but I mean, where, you just have photographers who are ghosting on brides and grooms.
Yeah.
And it's really just, it impacts the entire industry.
Yeah, for sure.
Just having, a modicum of integrity would be
great.
I
mean, integrity, good character, generosity, gratitude, like all these things that make our society function at its best, they have to be present in your business as well. Because if they're not, like if your ultimate goal is just let me make as much money as fast as I can and have, you're going to burn out, but you're also going to burn bridges, and that's just not that's no way to live.
Because that's one of those things where I think when people think business, they think spreadsheets. They think, KPIs or whatever metrics you're going to use or everything else. But, I think in the 21st century, some of the things you talk about are much more important to business. And I think a lot of businesses are reflecting that as opposed to, kind of the old school, like you said, a transactional business. Right. I don't think that's where things are going.
Yeah, I don't think it is either. And I think that it's for the best, like to go the other way.
So don't be a lousy person and a photographer at the same time.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome. So Dave, where can people get more information about what you do and Creator Nights if you want to pitch that?
Oh yeah. If you have a listener local to the Bay, we'd love to plug in.
Okay.
For sure.
So where would people go for more information on that?
Yeah. So my personal website, and I love telling people my website because I can't believe I secured this domain, but my website is Dave. That's my name, Dave.online.
Wow, that's easy to remember.
Like 5 years ago, I got this website for like $30. I got the domain and I am never letting it go. So Dave.online.
I wonder what that's worth now. I mean, I'm sure
I have no idea, but I don't even care. Some business named Dave could pop up and offer me $1 million. I'm keeping it. Like Dave.online. And so that's kind of a hub to all things that I do, whether it's my photography or my YouTube channel or social, whatever. And then with Creator Night, a nonprofit called The Gathering in San Jose, which is a creative co-working space, and like creator space. I think the website is gatheringsj.org. And typically when Creator Night is being promoted, which it typically gets promoted about 6 weeks out, you'll see all the information on the website. And so they're great events. And like I said, if you're local to the Bay, it is a very life-giving event, and we'd love to have any of your listeners come join us.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Dave. Great to see you. Hopefully, when I'm out in the Bay Area, we'll get together for those mass-produced, systemized Starbucks.
That's it. Exactly. Get that good espresso.
Thank you for listening to the Dead Pixel Society podcast. Read more great stories and sign up for the newsletter at www.thedeadpixelssociety.com.